Hey everyone, me again. If you're new around here, my name's Alice and I make videos all about affordable beauty and fashion. I should probably warn you that this video is probably going to be the longest video I've ever made because I am going to be going through all the foundations I bought this year and telling you what I think of them. And there were a lot of foundations. I tried 13 foundations this year. That's nearly one every month. Some of them I reviewed and you'll have seen them in my videos. I have a playlist with all my foundation reviews which I'll link down below if you want to refresh your memory. Some of them never made it on screen. So you'll see a few old and new things here. I'm sure you're wondering why I've tried so many this year. Partly that's because I'm a beauty YouTuber, so I do reviews on this channel and on my blog as well. The other reason is that it's actually really difficult for me to find foundation that I like. So as you can see, I'm incredibly pale. I have dry, sensitive skin. I do have quite a bit of skin redness. So for that reason, I need something that performs really well, that covers my skin redness, but that will also last reasonably well, but still be quite flattering on my dry skin. So that's quite a difficult balance to get right, and that's why a lot of foundations I try and I absolutely hate them. So I'm going to go through everything and just tell you what I think of the product if I've never mentioned it before, and if I have reviewed it, I'm going to tell you if my thoughts on the product have changed. I'm going to go through in 3 categories. So the first category are going to be the sheer to light coverage options like your BB creams, tinted moisturizers, all that good stuff. And then I'll go through the medium coverage options, which are like the everyday kind of foundations, and then I'll mention the more full coverage options at the end. I'm going to start off with the sheer to light coverage foundations. I should probably mention that I don't typically wear a lot of sheer to light coverage foundations just because, as I said, I have a lot of skin redness and they just don't give me the coverage that I need. When I do use something that's sheer, like a BB cream for example, I'll use it to get a nice boost of hydration on my skin and to get a glowy finish, but then I'll probably go over problem areas with something like a foundation stick. So that's why I don't mention them on my channel a lot, because I don't wear them on their own. But I still wanted to talk about the ones that I tried this year anyway. So the first one I bought is the Kiko Daily Protection BB Cream. This has SPF 30 in it. I bought it when I went to Italy. I was in the Kiko store and I just happened to swatch this and I thought I'd buy it mostly because this is the only Kiko base product I've ever found that's been pale enough for me. Everything else has been far too dark. But this one is a really, really nice colour. I really like the formula as well. It's very creamy and hydrating on the skin. It leaves a really nice glow. And if you kind of pat this on with a brush, you can get a light coverage out of this. I've actually been using this quite a bit now that it's got really cold here in the UK because my skin has been even drier than usual. And a lot of my foundations just look like crap on me right now. I've been using this one just all over the face, and then, as I said, just going over my cheeks where I get quite red with the Revolution Fast Boost foundation stick. So yeah, I really like this one. I really enjoyed reaching for it. I do use it with other products though because I need a bit more coverage. I don't typically wear this when I need my makeup to last all day, just because no BB cream ever lasts all day. Anything that's like really moisturizing will just break down a lot quicker, so I don't reach for it on those occasions, but I do really like it. I really like the packaging as well. It's very, very travel friendly and it's got a nice fine little nozzle. So I loved using this when I was in Italy and I've loved using it since it's got really cold here as well. I also tried the NYX Bear With Me Tinted Skin Veil this year as well. This one's a funny one because the shade I got, Vanilla Nude, just looks completely off on my skin. So the shade below this, they do have a paler shade, but it was far too light and it was also very, very pink toned. This one looked like a nice fair neutral shade. That's how it's described actually. But this shade has a really strong olive undertone. In fact, it almost looks a bit green on my skin. It is the strangest thing. Normally that wouldn't really matter if the undertone isn't quite right because this is sheer, so you could just fuse it out. But this one has just enough coverage that you can really see just how wrong the undertone is on me. However, it's still like light enough coverage that I find it really difficult to mix with my foundation mixers to get the undertone to match me. So yeah, for that reason I just don't reach for this at all. I don't think the formula is that great anyway, to be honest. It's nothing to write home about. So yeah, that's why I didn't reach for this, and that's why I haven't really mentioned it on my channel. But yeah, it's really nothing special to me at all. I tried the Maybelline the 24K Gold Skincare Foundation Cream in my full face of AliExpress makeup video. It was okay, I suppose. This is the shade number 2, and for me this just looks way too pink on my skin. It's a very thick foundation. It's almost like a moisturizer, so you can't really build it up, which I didn't like when I tried this. I think it would be really interesting to try this on the body, but I don't typically wear makeup on my body ever, even on special occasions. If you do, then this might be quite nice for that. I think if you're more into like natural makeup, this could be really nice, but again, I wouldn't really recommend this particular shade if you're normally a similar shade to me. And yeah, I don't really reach for this very often. I used it in the AliExpress video, and then I tried it a couple of times quite recently just to refresh my memory for filming this video. And yeah, I never really fell in love with this. I don't really like it. Personally, I just couldn't find a way to make it work. And then for some bizarre reason, I decided to buy the Bourjois Healthy Mix Serum this year. I don't have any idea why I did that. I haven't bought anything from Bourjois for years because their products kind of suck. I know their foundations get a lot of hype. I think if you're not Caucasian, then I don't really know how any of their foundations would match you. So I don't understand how they've been going so long, if I'm being brutally honest. I've never found a Bourjois foundation that's matched me, ever. And this doesn't match me either. It's too dark. It's also far too yellow and too warm toned on me. It just looks a bit weird. I think I bought this on Fragrance Direct for half the usual price. And I thought because it's quite sheer, it doesn't really matter if it's too dark. I'll still be able to get away with it. But it turns out I can't. I really tried to make this work, but it doesn't. The formula does seem nice, but because it's so sheer, again, I really struggled to mix my foundation mixes with this to try and get the undertone to match me a little bit better. Maybe I could try mixing it with another proper foundation instead of a foundation mixer, but there's nothing that I really want to mix this with. There's nothing that I think would really benefit from adding this to it. I mean, the formula does seem nice, but I'm just kind of a bit grumpy with Bourjois just because the shade range always sucks so much, and I really can't recommend them just because of how bad the shade ranges are. So next I'm going to be talking about the light to medium coverage foundations. These are more of like the everyday options. So I had a bit of a thing with the CYO long lasting foundation at the beginning of the year just because my skin got really dry over winter, and this is quite a dewy foundation, so this looked quite flattering on me at the time just because my skin was so dry. So anyway, I really did like this for a little while. I haven't reached for it since the beginning of the year when my skin was quite a lot drier. Just because of the shade, again, I really struggled to make this work. I actually looked at the shade range in Boots when I was doing a review of this, and I just thought it was pretty abysmal. Like, it just didn't go anywhere near dark enough, and this was the palest shade and this is nowhere near pale enough either. Not only is it too dark to begin with, but this actually oxidizes quite a lot on me, so for that reason I did really struggle to wear this. As much as I did like the formula, I found it really difficult to mix because I didn't really know how dark it was going to get when it oxidized. So yeah, I stopped reaching for this after a while. I think this is expired now, so I am going to be throwing it out. I just hung on to it so that I could film this bit of the video, but yeah, even if they weren't being discontinued, I don't think I would buy this again. I also tried the L'Oreal Infallible Foundation Stick this year. I have the shade 100 here. I also have the shade 80 somewhere, but of course, now that I'm sat down to film this video, I can't find it for the life of me. Anyway, I really fell in love with this foundation stick. It can't get quite as much coverage as other foundation sticks I've tried, like the Revolution Fast Base, but I really loved this one because it lasted all day. It's very difficult to find a foundation stick that's quite long lasting on the skin. I find that you can apply them very quickly, but then they deteriorate a bit faster. So this one, because I could just put it on so easily and it lasted all day, this kind of became my everyday go-to foundation for a little while. Unfortunately, I do think it's discontinued. I can't find it in Boots or Superdrug in store or online. I can find it on Amazon though, so I don't know if this is just an Amazon exclusive now. The shade 80 is not on Amazon. You can only get the shade 100. There also aren't that many shades for deep dark skin tones, which is a real shame. So yeah, I did really enjoy this. I really liked how it felt on the skin. You can get a solid medium coverage out of this one. I really liked it. I have a review of this on my blog, which I'll link down below. So this next foundation is probably the least favourite out of all the products I'm talking about. I really couldn't get on with this one. I remember filming a video quite soon after I bought it, and I said that I had mixed feelings about it, but that I was going to keep trying to make it work. Well, since then I have been trying to make it work, and I've concluded that I can't, and that this foundation is terrible. And it's a surprise because I saw a lot of people raving about this when it first launched, but this is the Revlon Candid foundation. If you've been on my channel for a while, you'll know that I really like their Colour Stay foundation. That was my holy grail a few years ago. So when this launched, I bought it straight off the Superdrug website. I didn't go into store and swatch it, which in hindsight was a mistake. And just from the description, it sounded like something I would really like. So it was described as like a tinted moisturizer but with more coverage, and I can definitely see that, to be fair, but what that actually means is that the foundation feels a little bit thick in texture. It's also a lot more matte than I thought it would be. It's not when you first pump it out of the bottle, but then you can feel it start to set and mattify the more you move it around on the skin. And some people might like it because it feels like it's kind of setting down by itself and like you don't have to use a powder, but for me personally, I just could not get on board with it. And when it does start to set, it also oxidizes quite a bit as well, so the shade, even though this is the palest shade, it looks far too dark on me. But because it's so wet but also self-setting, it actually really reminds me of about 10 or 15 years ago when makeup used to be shit. If you're about my age, I'm 29, you might remember the Maybelline Dream Matte Mousse. This kind of reminds me of that in the way that it sets and feels on the skin. And that's not a good thing. I don't want that back in my life. You know, foundation has developed quite a long way since then. I don't know what it is exactly, but it never ever looks right on my skin. It always seems to kind of come apart on my skin, like it just doesn't want to stay sat down. And I thought for a little while that that might be because I use oil primers. So I tried it again before filming this video. I tried it with a silicone primer, which I don't really like reaching for anymore, but I thought I'd give it a go. And even that didn't work. I don't think I can get it to work. I think it just is a crap product. So this next one, I didn't think that I was going to buy this when it first launched. It didn't sound like something that I would like. And that's this one. It's the Maybelline Dream Urban Cover Foundation. So I did try this when I first got it, but I didn't like it, and I didn't mention it on this channel, I think, because first of all, the shade is just far too yellow, but secondly, it says that it's full coverage on the bottle, and it's absolutely not. That is a huge lie. It's light to medium buildable coverage. But that being said, I did find a way to make this work over the last 2 months, and I'm really glad that I did. I've really been enjoying using it as a travel foundation, or just like a starting point before I build up certain areas with a foundation stick. On me, the finish is kind of a satin finish, but that's because I use oil primers, so it looks a bit more satin, maybe a little bit dewy when I use it. But I think when I first tried this and I was reaching for silicone primers, I do think it looked a little bit more drying on me. Whether or not I recommend it to you personally just depends on your makeup routine. It depends how much coverage you need, and if you can find a shade that works for you, which you probably won't be able to because the shade range for this is so crap. I'm not going to talk about this one for too long. This is the LA Girl Pro Coverage HD High... Dude, God, this is a long name. HD High Definition Long Wear Illuminating Foundation. My God. This is the shade Fair. This is the palest shade that they had on the Beauty Bay website, but the problem is it's not pale at all. It's bright orange. So I almost never reach for this, and when I do, I don't really know how much I can actually say about the foundation because I have to mix this with like 2/3 mixer and 1/3 of this foundation to get it to match my skin tone. So yeah, Beauty Bay screwed me over when I bought this foundation because it did not look this colour on the website at all. I can't really tell you too much about the actual foundation because again, I mixed this with so much other crap to get it to match my skin that I don't really know how much of the finish or the wear time is to do with the foundation and how much of it is to do with all the other products that I'm mixing with it to get it to work, if you see what I mean. So yeah, can't really tell you too much about this one. Don't recommend it if you're the same shade as me. I have a dedicated review of this one. I think I did a first impressions video when I first bought this. This is the L'Oreal True Match Super Blendable Foundation in one of their new paler shades, 0.5N. By the way, I know they recently reformulated this. This is the reformulated version with the added skincare benefits in there. This foundation really surprised me because from the way it's described, a super blendable foundation, something with a light to medium buildable coverage, with lots of skincare goodness chucked in there, It sounded like something that would be quite, maybe not dewy, but quite forgiving on the skin. It sounded like it would just have a natural looking glow to it, but it's actually, on me, surprisingly drying. And that's a bit of a shock for me because I use oil primers. So even though I have dry skin, my makeup doesn't normally look dry. Whereas this, it looked quite drying in my first impressions review, and I thought maybe I was just having a bad skin day. But I have tried it again multiple times since then, and I can confirm that this is actually very drying on me, and I'm not quite sure why that is. The good thing about it though is that it does last really well on me. So I reach for this when I want my makeup to last all day. It's also a really nice filming foundation as well, as long as I build something up over the areas of redness. Just because it is, again, a little bit more matte, which is quite flattering under my studio lights. The shade is also maybe a little smidge too dark, which again works quite well when I'm filming. I need to have a slightly darker base just so I don't get washed out by the lights. So yeah, I have my uses for it, but I definitely don't reach for it on an everyday basis, which surprises me because it seemed like it would be a really nice everyday go-to foundation. I also tried the Colourpop No Filter Sticks. This one I only bought quite recently, but I did try it out on camera very, very quickly so that I could mention it in this video. I really wanted to like this one because I usually really enjoy foundation sticks. I find them so easy to throw on, but this one, there's just not much about it that I actually like. First of all, the shade is a little bit too dark. It looks quite orange on me. Secondly, the application isn't quite as pleasant as the L'Oreal Infallible shaping stick, just because even though it's creamy, it still kind of like drags on the skin a little bit, and it's not as easy to blend out. For me, that kind of defeats the purpose of a foundation stick. I just feel like they should be something that you should be able to throw on really, really quickly if you're in a bit of a rush. So it kind of misses the mark there. Also, again, this one does look a bit drying on me as well, so I probably recommend this if you have more of a normal to oily skin type. For me, I just couldn't find anything special about this, and I don't really reach for it a lot. So yeah, I've not been the biggest fan of this. That being said, I would really like to try it again in spring and summer next year. I bought this in winter. This is like the worst time of year for my skin, so I'd really like to try it again when my skin isn't quite as dry. So if I try this out more in 2020, when my skin's a bit different and my feelings change, I'll keep you posted, I'll keep you updated either here or on my blog, but right at this moment in time, it's not my favourite. And then the last two I wanted to mention are more full coverage foundations. So for most people, these are going to be a little bit too heavy for everyday use unless you just don't use too much of the product. The first full coverage foundation I tried is from W7. This is their Face Fantasy. I'm pretty sure I bought this last year actually, but then I just forgot about it. It just sat in the back of my drawer for ages. And then I tried it this year in a video, and it was okay, I guess. I mean, I like the fact that it's got a pump. It says on the bottle that it's a matte foundation, but it isn't. So just ignore that. It feels quite creamy when you first pump it out, and then once it sets, it's maybe a little bit more satin, but it's not matte at all. The only reason I haven't really been reaching for this is because I prefer something that looks a little bit more dewy personally, just because of my dry skin, but also the shade oxidizes quite badly. So when it's swatched, it looks like it actually matches really well, but it does start to set and oxidize, and when it gets to that point, it looks a lot more pink. And yes, I probably could mix it with something, but again, I'd rather just reach for a dewier foundation that actually matches me a bit better in the first place. So yeah, I haven't really reached for this a lot at all. It's just not really very special. I think if you have a normal skin type instead of a dry skin type, and you wanted to try something that was really, really cheap, then sure, give this a go for it. But personally, I just haven't really been reaching for it. Instead, I've been reaching for these. So these are the Revolution Conceal and Hydrate foundations. I did a first impressions video when they first came out, and I also compared them to Conceal and Define as well. I'll leave the links to both of those videos below. But yeah, I really, really loved this foundation. I have two shades here. There's F1 and there's 0.7. Out of all the foundations that I've tried this year, this has been my favourite. I'm actually really, really glad that I picked this up because initially I wasn't going to be completely honest, but I decided to buy it mostly to review for this channel, and I thought it might be too similar to Conceal and Define, which I like when I'm filming, but I don't really like for everyday wear. This this one looks so much better on me. The coverage isn't quite as full as Conceal and Define, but the coverage is better than a lot of the other foundations I've mentioned in today's video. A few people thought this was too dewy when it first launched. I personally really liked that because I do have dry skin. But yeah, I really like this. I really got on with this. One thing to note is that it does oxidize a little bit more than the other Revolution foundations I've tried in the past. So I would recommend going a shade below the one that you normally get. So I'm normally the shade F1, which I can kind of get away with in this foundation, but the shade F0.7 is a better match for me. So those are all the foundations I bought in 2019. 13 foundations doesn't sound too bad for someone who has a makeup channel, but sitting here with 13 foundations in front of me does feel a bit excessive. I'm actually doing a low buy in 2020, so if I wasn't a YouTuber, I probably wouldn't buy any foundation at all next year, but because I do have this on my blog and stuff and I want to let you know what I think of the latest launches, I might buy a couple, but definitely not 13 again. I don't need 13. I'm probably going to declutter quite a few of these. The good news is, from trying so many foundations, I've actually found some really nice ones that I love and that I feel like I'm really going to use up in 2020, especially with doing a low buy and not buying as many new foundations. So I feel like I'm going to get a lot of use out of this Kiko BB cream, especially while it's still a bit colder and my skin's a bit drier and I need that bit more, you know, dewiness and radiance than normal. I'm definitely going to use up my L'Oreal Infallible foundation sticks. I don't really have very much product left in the first place. I've only got that on the shade 100. I have even less than that on the shade 80. So they're going to get used up for sure. Now that I found a way to make this one work, the Maybelline Dream Urban Cover, I've actually really been enjoying it, especially for days when I want my makeup to last all day. And the Conceal and Hydrate has actually become one of my favourite everyday foundations. Again, I have a lot of skin redness, so I do prefer something with that bit more coverage to it, but I don't wear too much of it on an everyday basis. I'll just get a really small amount, sheer it out all over the face and just build it up on the areas where I really need that extra coverage. And yeah, I really like how this looks on my skin. I really like how flattering it is. I feel like I've been sat here for ages. My throat is actually going again from all this talking, so I'm going to wrap up the video here. I really hope you guys found this video helpful. I know that foundations are really difficult to get right, especially if you're looking for more affordable options, so I really hope that this helped you. Let me know if you've tried any of these foundations in the comments section below, or if you have any questions about the ones I've used. If there's anything I haven't covered, just ask me down below. I read and reply to all of my comments eventually. I'll see you next time. Bye!